know Simon Woolley, my old comrade and man in arms from Operation Black Vote. We founded that together in, what, 1990? I don't even want to say the year.
Long time ago.
It was so long.
He had hair, I had no grey hair.
And we did voter registration and tried to drive that through. But now, why I've invited him here today to speak to us, because he is the chair, well, actually, I'm going to let you explain so I don't get it wrong, but I think he's the chair of the Race Audit Unit Advisory Group.
Yes.
And the Race Audit Unit Advisory Group is the group that's been set up by Prime Minister Theresa May to effect a legal challenge around discrimination in British government services in all departments. But he'll explain it a little better than I. And then, of course, we want to hear your views on the Windrush matter.
Sure. So, for over 20 years, I've been an activist fighting for social and racial justice. With Audrey Adams here and Lee Jasper, we set up Operation Black Vote to empower our communities. When we started in 1996, there were 4 black and minority ethnic MPs. Today, there are over 50. 10% come from Operation Black Vote. In fact, in the last few days, 2 leaders of local authorities came from Operation Black Vote and the 1990 Trust, Roxana Fayaz and Joe Ejiofor, two activists now running local authorities, come from our black activist camp. So having worked for 20 years and continuing to do that, one, to challenge government, local and national, but our, heart and soul of our projects has been 2 things. One, to empower our communities, to demand justice, not to ask for it, to demand it, but to nurture a generation of leaders through our MP shadowing scheme, a magistrate scheme, local councillor scheme. But you know, when you're challenging government, that you want them to respond. And just a couple of years ago, when Theresa May was in the Home Office, I said to her that a step forward would be to have a race audit of the Home Office. We need to see how it isn't working for us. And at the time she said, actually, it's a good idea, I'll do it. But because she was in conflict with David Cameron, the idea got kicked into the long grass. When she came in as Prime Minister, I asked her again, and she said not only would she do the Home Office an audit, uncover the uncomfortable truths, but she promised to do it right across Whitehall. And actually they spent a whole year in every single department on seeing how these government departments in education, in health, employment, didn't work for us. And the data was absolutely shocking. For example, and you may have seen this with the David Lammy Criminal Justice Review, that we found out that youth incarceration today in this country is 40% black youths. 40%. Imagine if that translates to the regular prisons. We make up 14% of the population, yet 40% of the prison population. When you see that data, what it says to me, loud and clear, it's not only our parents' generation. My mum came from Barbados in the late 50s and worked all her adult life in the NHS. It's not only her generation that was failed, but in many ways it's her children, our generation, and our children's generation that have been failed, not just by this government, but by subsequent governments too. You know, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of Stephen Lawrence, and there was a high point, and you may have seen Lee Jasper in that video, because he was again on the front line on holding the government to account, on giving us a public inquiry. And after that challenge, after that victory of having a public inquiry, in many ways there was a high point in race relations, because the 2001, I think, Lee, Race Relations Amendment Act forced every public institution in this country to have a race equality program, how to close them gaps. That was the high point. But of course, after 9/11 and 7/7, the whole climate changed. It was all about homegrown terrorism. It was all about, it's these black people that reside in our streets and around the country are the real enemy. And then, of course, then, you had this climate about immigration. It wasn't just with the Conservative Party. The Labour Party, every single mainstream political party pandered to prejudice and pandered first to the BNP. Remember the BNP? Nick Griffin, we took them on too. We took them on and beat them too. But the mainstream parties were pandering to it. And they were saying, up in the northern cities, yeah, there is too much immigration, etc., etc. And that's why we've transpired, as Peter articulated, is that when you have a climate that's saying there are too many foreigners, actually the civil servants have looked for the lowest hanging fruit, as he said, and that was us. And that was our parents. But you know, as Peter said, the governments, and it's not just this Conservative government, they thought they could get away with it. They thought to themselves, if I deal with an individual over here and an individual over there, it won't uncover the systemic drive to low down the numbers in which we got caught up in the downdraft because we were the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest targets. But to come to Lee's point, so Simon, black activist, fighting for our community.
That's right.
But now you're in the camp with the government. And I know you wouldn't call me a traitor, but some people have said, why am I working with Theresa May? Why am I working with a government that has done so much wrong for us? I'll tell you quite simple. Because ever since I've done this work with Lee and others, we've never had the luxury, ever, to pick and choose what type of government we want in power to address race inequality. We haven't. If we wait for the perfect government to do business with, we'll wait for a very long time. And so to get to over there, we have to take every step we can. And so at the moment when Theresa May said, look, I'm interested in tackling race equality, I don't disbelieve her, I test her. You understand? And so when she said to me, I want you to chair this race disparity audit on closing inequality gaps, I said to her, I'm putting my reputation on the line here. People have faith in me because they know I'm honest. They know where my heart lies. You need to show me that you're serious about this. And so I was told, well, maybe there'll be £10 million to get young black people back in unemployment. You know, some of our black kids, 50% are unemployed. Those that are employed are in 0-hour contracts. Employed today, unemployed tomorrow. No security, no health care, no holidays. Show me your mean business. Otherwise, I'm out of here. Within a few weeks, I get a call. How does £100 million sound? To begin the process. I'm not going to say no for £100 million to get our communities. Not for me, by the way. Somebody told me today, oh, Simon Wool is sitting on a pot of £100 million. No. What we've been able to do is to unlock £100 for the lottery to give for primarily black people, but also for disadvantaged youths. My job now is to try and ensure, because remember this, we extracted money for BME youths, but the civil servants thought £100 million for black youths, we can't have that.
Can't we redefine black?
Can't we redefine black? So they put disadvantaged youths. My job now is to ensure that it doesn't go to everybody but us. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying, brother? So, look, just because I've got one foot in the camp, my heart is in the right place. And we're holding meetings. We hold one with the Ministry of Justice, because they all say they've got their targets, they've got their programs. My job is to keep their feet close to the fire. When Lee worked with the mayor's office, Ken Livingstone once said, look, if you want to change people's minds, you keep your foot on their jugular. And only when the job's done do you let it off, metaphorically speaking. Metaphorically speaking. So look, the challenge is right now for the Windrush generation. I think that, as Peter said, you've got to get legal advice. Because don't think because the climate has momentarily changed that they will see us in a different light and say, you know what, we're really sorry, you can have this, this, and this, and this. It's not going to happen. Because when you're dealing with some of this officialdom that for a long time has been given a green light to persecute you, that's not going to change in an instant. We've got to have Rockwilers, Audrey Adams, Jennifer, Rockwilers, community Rockwilers, that will ensure we get the best deal. And Peter's right, compensate, big compensation for the hurt caused. I think finally, what I would say in this part of the discussion to you, look, there's an opportunity, there's a big opportunity to do a number of things in this climate that people are saying, are recognizing they've done wrong to the Windrush generation. As all of you know here, it's the 70th anniversary. It's time that we revisited the national contribution that our parents' generation have done in building a beaten country after the Second World War. The Windrush generation, my parents' generation, transformed this country from a broken country to a dynamic country. Furthermore, in that process of hard work, dynamism, of struggle, we must recognize, and I've been telling Peter and Lee and Audrey for a very, very long time, we must write down today for our children and for our children's generation what we undertook in those 70 years and before was a black British civil rights movement. We talk about the civil rights movement in the USA. We did exactly the same thing. Bus boycotts, lobbied, changed the law, empowered our communities. We haven't written it down. And if we don't write it down and tell our children, they may hear Lee Jasper, black activist, blah, 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 but he won't be in the context of a black British civil rights movement that transformed not only the UK, by the way, the activist here transformed the debate for 20 million black people in Europe. Because of what we did here, we transformed the legislation on mainland Europe. Next week I'm going to a conference in Brussels on celebration of Afro-Europeans. 20 million black people, I should tell you.
Those are the ones with papers. There's actually 50 million if you count the ones without papers.
Correct. You know what they do? Then black brothers and sisters, they look to us for leadership. We need to note that down. We need to support them and note it down and hand it down to the next generation.
Give him a round of applause. Simon, I can't let you go without asking you now. On the Windrush thing.
I've got my flap jacket on, don't worry.
On the Windrush thing. Because what we're interested in is, are you going to hold this government to account in relation to their immigration policy, which is racially targeting people who are brown, who are black, and who, regardless of whether they've got a British passport, are seen as legitimate victims for immigration inquiry and deportation. Surely the point that Peter made earlier, that it's not happening to white Australians, it's not happening to white New Zealanders, but it is happening to brown and black people. How are you going to challenge that?
Well, I've never shirked from a challenge. And I told officials months before this blew up, just because I tell them doesn't mean they're going to listen. Look, now they're listening because they are on the back foot. But it's in this moment when they're on the back foot, we can make substantive change. It's now when they're on the defensive, you know, with Lammy doing his speech. I think Lammy raised his game.
No, give David Lammy some applause in the room, man. Because I'll tell you what, I spent years listening to people telling me what David Lammy isn't. but I saw what he possibly could be.
Correct.
And he's now growing into that figure. So
Correct.
give him some more love one more time
Correct.
for Mr. Lammy.
Correct. So I think the spirit of Bernie Grant came through.
Aye. Aye.
Came through right there.
That's right.
But he believes it. He's running with it. He's being knocked for it. So we need to. People say, "Oh, you're just grandstanding." No, it was just being a black man passionate about the gross injustice. Let's remember that. But you know, Lee, you know, you can tell me what am I doing? We look in the mirror, each and every one of us here today, and say, what are we doing? Because I can't do it on my own. Neither can Lammy. Neither can Jasper. The whole always has to be greater than the sum of its parts.
And can I tell you, the reason why we're here is because we didn't take action in the past.
There you go.
Because it's not as though this was a surprise coming. We've all heard of people being deported in strange circumstances, bound, gagged. I am old enough to remember Joy Gardner being bound
Correct.
and gagged.
That's right.
And put on a plane. And that was in 1986.
Correct.
And a whole city burned when they attacked that black woman at that time. So these things have been moving along and getting tougher legislation every year. And we've been behind the curve as a people protesting about it, campaigning about it. And I hope now that people realize that your citizenship and your rights in this country are entirely conditional on the extent to which you are prepared to defend them on a day-to-day basis. And if you're not, they'll be taken away.
I guess the last note, Lee, would be, look, you know, you've had the Windrush, but around the corner, we're looking at the last parts of Brexit. Now, of course, Brexit was predicated on immigration. And when they say immigration, they mean people that look like you and I, even though we're born here. And so we've still got some rubbish to come, because that Brexit demon is out of the lamp and it's coming our way. And so we have to be vigilant. We have to be united, because of course they will say, well, don't worry about them. Don't worry about yourselves. It's the Muslims. Then it's us. Then it's somebody else. So we have to sow if you like, a golden thread of people who are subject to this hostility, in which we're stronger together, I would say, Lee.
Okay, thanks very much, Simon. Hey.